I think that based on some of the information I presented earlier, the direction that everyone is going is reducing their infrastructure footprint. In many of the cloud experts' views, there's no benefit to owning infrastructure any longer, and there's no reason to pay up front for infrastructure capacity or technology capacity. So the business value here is that's really being enabled by the cloud is paying only for what you use and only for the value of the technology that you need, and only for when you need it. So thereby reducing your infrastructure footprint to a minimum, and in some cases to zero as far as what you control and what you as a business manage. And that in turn drives increased utilization on the cloud provider side, because they're maximizing infrastructure utility. They're not running at 15% CPU and whatnot. They're running at 98% and adding capacity as needed and provisioning and planning to do that. And you're then, as a business owner or government organization, you're able to focus on what matters to you most. That's the business value of cloud, and that really compromises the economic model, the licensing model, and the IT services model of the past 4 decades.
Very good. So, John, what's your perspective? Where do you see things headed?
Well, I spent some time thinking about what's driving some of the move toward green IT, and it's certainly not an exclusive list, but some of the things that I've noticed are there's pressure on capital budgets, and whether it's on the private sector side as a result of the recent recession and companies trying to hoard cash on the balance sheet, they're less eager to make some of those big capital investments. On the federal government side, of course, there's lots of downward pressure on budgets and some big decisions impending. So I'd say downward pressure on capital budgets, increased regulation. There's numerous executive orders out. Congress has passed laws mandating reductions in the federal government of reductions in greenhouse gases, reduction in overall energy use within the next couple of years. So that's driving a need to be able to do more with less, or be able to do more with what organizations currently have. And then third, I think there's increased attention on being green at the highest levels of the organization. I think some of the senior executives in large enterprises or the federal government are they want to be seen as good stewards of the environment. They have a genuine concern for the environment. They also see the marketing impact of being a green company, being viewed as a green company, so that the consumers of their products or services feel good about purchasing those products and services from them. And also a recruiting tool. I think there's a lot of young people coming out of college today who want to join an organization of which they can be proud in terms of their impact on the environment and their efforts to be good stewards of the environment. So I think there's budgetary issues, regulatory issues, and then sort of marketing, market perception issues that are driving large organizations to try to adopt green IT in various ways.
Excellent. What are you starting to see out there, sort of over the edge there?
Over the edge, I can appreciate this one speaker earlier today when he stepped up to the edge and said you don't affect change until you're right there at the edge, and so I feel that even though you're capable to move forward with green or cloud, it's more complex than what you're doing in-house today. So if you wanted to make yourself more green, you need, like more instrumentation inside of your data center to be able to get that baseline of where you're at to where you want to go. And until some more technology standards and industry collaboration comes forward to be able to further instrument either that environment, or even when we talk about move it all to the cloud, well, that makes you green, but we still got to service the cloud service provider. He has to be green. So he still needs everything that we either goes into the enterprise or into a service provider. And so until there's more simplicity, no one wants to spend more money, a whole lot more money, to be green just for the sake of being green. I think, as it was cited by other speakers on stage, unless I can see some bottom line savings by doing something that's green as a benefit, then it tends to not be a motivator. And it's the same thing with the cloud. You know, a lot of the complexity that like a cloud broker will alleviate an IT organization from. Some are trying to think about, some IT organizations are thinking about building their own instead of, you know, partnering with a solution provider to be able to take that complexity out of there. And they're trying to figure out, well, how do I manage 3 different types of service level agreements with 3 different service or hosters, because I need a software as a service here, infrastructure as a service here, and, you know, new project over here. So you have the ability to move forward, but having all the information to come together to make intelligent decisions in a form of a dashboard or a cross-organization tool aren't readily there. So it takes a lot of extra manual labor to get that data to make those decisions of finding the path through the woods.
I have a comment there. What I would say there is, if we take a look at what some of the progressive companies are doing in the cloud space, look at Facebook's model for their data center. Modular, extremely progressive, very, very, very low carbon footprint, rapidly expandable. Google has a very similar model. Hitachi Limited has developed a green data center infrastructure model that's also very similar. Microsoft's new data center supporting their Microsoft Azure platform, same type of concept. The technologies are there, and they're getting better all the time. What you need is a way to implement them effectively.
Yeah, I'd say those organizations tend to be less geographically constrained versus some typical enterprises that try to think about operations close to some facility. So like some of the larger social media sites can play all 50 states against each other to find the best place for the best environment to have a low PUE or the lowest cost energy or green energy. But some organizations still want to keep IT operations close to them, and they're not able to go, like 2/3 of the way across the country and still have low latency to drive their business with good performing applications.
Right. So what I would suggest there is that those would be requirements that you would implement in a broker model. You'd implement requirements for latency, for geographic distribution, for very close connectivity to certain bandwidth or backbones. You could build all those as application or service requirements, and have that a component of the rationalization process to compare different service providers.
So Catherine, what's your perspective? I know Fusion.io's got some issues, not some issues, but some of the things you're seeing as challenges. And then what are possible solutions, kind of looking over that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good transition. So Facebook is actually Fusion.io's biggest customer. They have over 100,000 of our drives.
Any Facebook customers? There's one.
So I think whether you're talking about cloud or whether you have an application with a database or any type of backend, to be able to build an efficient system, it comes down to really trying to balance 4 things: CPU, RAM, disk, and the network. Christian did a good job of establishing Fusion.io's business case, and that aside from RAM, previously there wasn't even with RAM, there was not a persistent local storage device that could really feed CPUs. So the trend that we're seeing moving forward, and especially for cloud applications, is the vendors are starting to better utilize local storage. So if you look at Exchange 2010, SQL Server 2012, the new VMware View, Citrix's new MTS offering, these are all now built to utilize high-speed local storage so that we can better balance and bring up that 15% server utilization to something like 80%. So we're seeing this shift in application development. We're working with a group now. One of the initial developers of Hadoop from Google has left to build a more high-performance version of Hadoop, and it's because these new technologies are available that can really increase the performance density of the overall architecture.